And thanks. And before I bring Camilla in, I'm going to ask both Alex and Mark this actually. I'll come to you, Alex, first. Alex, how do you reflect on yourself as a leader, Alex?
It's always a tricky one, because I will openly admit I was a creature of the environment I was brought up in. You know, I was brought up in an environment where, you know, it's okay to, you know, shout and scream, and you did all of those things, and that's the way you were taught. And I never really considered the impact I was having on people until a friend of mine, he said, "You do realise how you're coming across? I can tell you the place, I can tell you the time, I can tell you everything about that moment." Because it's like, oh, no, I just want the best. I just want them to know that this is what I want, because you're going about it the wrong way. So it's really important as leaders that we actually do have that moment where we've got trusted people that we can listen to, that will give you that feedback, that will tell you. And in the leadership training, we've actually got an item called a 360, a turbo 360, which is a really, really quick and easy tool that anyone could put to use. So it's all about, what should I stop doing, what should I start doing, and what should I continue doing? So there's only 3 questions you need to ask, and really you get some really important feedback super, super quick. And that's the sort of thing you could do pre-Christmas, just to make sure that your team know that you're there to support them. So I think reflections of me as a leader, forever learning, is one thing I'd always say, is that I'm nowhere near perfect, although, you know, my wife thinks I think I am, but that's a different story. And I think it's always there about really learn, listen to your team, and keep on going, because we've all got that same goal and ambition, as I said. So for me, leading is learning.
Yeah. And Mark, same sort of question for you. How would you consider yourself?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've gone through a massive journey the last 7 years. Probably looked at myself 7 years ago, didn't like what I saw, and approached the company I was working for at the time, and was fortunate enough to be given a life coach. I was meant to have 4 or 5 sessions with the life coach. I ended up having 18 in the end. So definitely got my benefit out of my life coach. But just, you know, it taught me how to walk away from situations, actually go back and deal with them, but deal with them in a different way, rather than being the typical chef, shouting and hollering and wanting the answer there and then. Using the time when you're driving home to reflect on your day, rather than taking it home, and sometimes taking it out on the family at home, using your drive time on the way home to reflect on your day and how you do things different. So for me, life coach definitely helped. I recently completed the mental health awareness training. There was a few eyebrows raised when a chef put his hand up and said he wanted to do it. But again, for me, it's about breaking that stigma of the chef and having an open door, actually being someone that will sit there and listen. Obviously can't give everyone the answers all the time, but now after doing the training, recognise some traits in myself. We spoke about anxiety. There's 7 stages of anxiety. I sat there on the course and thought, Christ, I've got 5 of these. So still doing some work on myself now. Yeah, and sometimes you have to push yourself, going above beyond the day job. You know, vice chairman of Craft Guild doesn't come easy. It takes a lot of work to push that through, but allows me to be exposed to the Culinary Academy, bringing young chefs through. And also I sit on Springboard Future Chef. Again, sometimes I don't have the time, but I have to put my own time in. So yeah, it allows me to change myself still as a leader and look at other things, really. So like Alex said, yeah, you're always progressing, really.
No, thank you. And thank you for your openness, actually, both of you, your openness. I really appreciate that. And Camilla, thank you for being so patient, sitting there. We hadn't forgotten you, I promise. So Camilla, we've just been talking about creating an open and inclusive culture in this business. Does this have an impact on well-being in the workplace? And if so, how?
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, absolutely. I think the workplace culture you have in place, you know, your values, your behaviours, your actions, they really are your foundation to support workplace well-being. So if you as an employer, you're actively demonstrating a commitment to providing a workplace environment that you've built on respect and fairness, equality, diversity, opportunity, then you're really going to be placing your colleagues' personal welfare and their professional development really at the heart of everything you do in your operation. And by doing that, you know, you're really creating an environment where people feel that they will be safe and supported when they talk to a manager or a colleague. So it's really great to hear actually what Mark and Alex were saying about their own experiences and how they're applying that when they're leading their own teams. And I think, you know, for your colleagues, your employees to feel that they're going to be safe and supported. They're going to be able to talk about issues and challenges that they may be facing at home or at work. And it really removes a lot of the fear or, the stigma that team members can feel when they are asked to talk about how they're really feeling at work or at home. And I think, again, when you're looking at culture as a leader, another important consideration is have a think about or how you'd encapsulate what good employee wellbeing really looks like in your own business. Would that be low absence rates, good employee engagement, your employees reporting that they feel they have a good work-life balance? So again, it comes back to what everyone's saying. It's encouraging those open discussions, the feedback from employees about what wellbeing means to them. And, another really good thing you can do is, where it's practical, act on their suggestions and their feedback. So you're empowering your employees to take actions to improve their own and their teammates' well-being. So I think really just to kind of summarise that, for me, that open, inclusive culture is really that one where employees feel confident to feedback on the positive and the negative effects on their well-being. And they're also confident that what they say will be acted on, either by their leaders or they'll be able to enact that change for themselves as well.
And what would you think, and what would you say the signs look out for if something's wrong, which is obviously quite difficult sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, Kathy. I mean, I try not to kind of take a lot of time answering this, but there are a few. But what I would say, first and foremost, I'd say that spotting signs of, depression or anxiety in the workplace, it can be tricky. And it does show up differently for everyone. So there really are no hard or fast rules on mental health, like there would be, for example, if you were treating a cut or a burn in a kitchen. So it's that difference between the physical and the mental health. But there are, common signs and symptoms that could indicate an issue. So these include behavioural change. So, has someone who was really extrovert become very withdrawn? Are they eating lunch on their own at work now? Or are they avoiding going out for that drink after work, or not taking part in group chats, withdrawing from social contact? Absenteeism can often be one of the most obvious signs, but presenteeism is also common. So work could be that distraction from problems at home, or someone feels they have to overcompensate at work because they feel bad because they're not actually as focused as they once were. You've also got physical signs. So, people taking less care over their appearance can be a reflection of their state of mind. Is it just too much effort to look after your uniform for work, or are they not brushing their hair as often as they used to? And that actually can be reflective of a struggle or a major issue that an individual is facing. Weight gain, weight loss are other physical indicators. Increased anger, irritability. You may see in social settings increased use of alcohol or drugs, or perhaps if you're aware that someone likes a bit of a flutter, or likes to do a bit of online gambling, but actually that activity's increased. They can also be signs that also all is not well. A couple of other things to bear in mind here as well. It's important to be aware of life situations. So, has your colleague's relationship recently broken down? Mark talked about, and Zoe talked about bereavements. Are they under significant stress at work or at home? And I think here it's really important for you as a leader to think about, what would you do if you did spot these signs? How would you check in with that colleague? And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about wellbeing check-ins. But I think it's important to note here, it can be really, really daunting for colleagues and managers to have that conversation. So I would just say, remember, it doesn't have to be a big, heavy conversation, just a general, how are things? And it's key here for you to be prepared to listen and have the time to listen. So maybe don't try and do it at a really busy period in service, but kind of think about when you might have that conversation. And it's, you can listen to what they're saying and maybe what they're not saying, and try and pick out what might lie underneath, and try not to jump to conclusions. So, you don't have to be a doctor or a mental health expert to ask the questions. I know it's fine to just say it gently. You might say, I'm a little worried about you. Are things okay? And as I say, it's just, you can be empathetic, but you don't have to necessarily kind of jump to conclusions or try and find a similar experience to be supportive. And finally, really just say, someone might not want to talk now, and that's fine too. So you don't have to push for a discussion. You can just say, I'm always here if you want to talk, and that leaves the door open. And don't fear going back and checking in again, even if someone was perfectly fine all along. So it's really coming back to that open communication, just letting people know that you are there for them now and you will be there for them in the future as well.
I think from what you're saying, it's about everybody being tuned in to take a notice of the teams around them and their staff and looking out for those signs. Maybe that isn't something we talked about in the past, but being tuned into those very subtle changes actually is something, from what you're saying, is really important to managers to do that. And as people come into the industry, they'll only stay if they feel safe and all those things, and well-being. You started to touch on it. So would you sort of elaborate on how we can keep workplace well-being top of the mind?
Absolutely. I mean, just starting that, I think before we kind of go into what you can do, I think it's also important here to just know your limits and your boundaries when and how to point people in the direction of help. So, as I said before, we know our limits when it comes to physical first aid. We're not going to try and do stitches, hopefully, in the kitchen. And we should also look at that when it applies to mental health first aid as well. So if you have an employee assistance program, you could look at referring to support like that, or Hospitality Action. We have a 24/7 helpline as well that will provide in the moment emotional support. So I think, when you're looking at workplace wellbeing, look at what you want to do within your business, but where you might also have to do that onward referral. But if we kind of take it back to what you can do in your own business, I think as we're building back from COVID-19, it's more important than ever to take care of the well-being of your team and to look again at these options that you can provide in terms of specific and proactive and preventative types of support. So we've talked about employee assistance programs. Mark mentioned there mental health first aid training, mental health awareness and resilience training is also really important here. And I think I'd just like to say there is a real positive that we're seeing at the charity, is that I think living through the pandemic has been in some ways a bit of a leveller. We've all weathered a storm together. So a lot of businesses are now contacting us and they're wanting to look at how they provide wellbeing support to their teams. So that there's a lot more openness about discussing mental health in the workplace and wellbeing, and looking at what appropriate support you can put into place. So we think that's great, particularly because there's a lot of uncertainty still about emotional and psychological impacts of the pandemic. So we may see lots of different reactions from our teams, that may range from euphoria, happiness that people are moving to a more normal way of life. Others may feel anger, depression. They're anxious about debts that have built up during, periods on furlough, or that their job may be at risk. And I think, as we've mentioned, we have a recruitment shortage in the industry at the moment. We know there's pressure on our teams coming up to Christmas. So I think to keep it front of mind, really think about what types of support you could put in your business and how you'd communicate and signpost team members to these, because that's really important. Do people know what support and what training you have on offer? Again, in our survey we did a year or so ago, we found about 50% of people weren't aware of the support and the training that was on offer for them. So I think that's also important to bear in mind. As I've mentioned, we have a helpline, but there's lots of other kind of signposts and support out there. Lots of the national mental health charities like Mind have some great resources online. So just take a look and see what kind of support you have and what kind of support you might like to put in place for workplace wellbeing. And I specifically wanted to talk about the wellbeing check-ins here, and we will be making the Hospitality Action and Fair Kitchens wellbeing check-in template available at the end of today's webinar, and anyone joining can adapt and use that, for their own business and how it fits their own culture. And we've always been advocates of these because we understand, operators generally know what works best in their own business in terms of getting feedback, but actually checking in with your team to see how they feel is really, really valuable. And we would say perhaps do that once or twice a year. It's a really good tool, good leadership tool. It's flexible. It can be adjusted to suit your culture and your operating style. And it's definitely something to seriously consider post any period of change. So I'd say that's really relevant now. And I'd also say keep any wellbeing check short and simple. We're also busy during service, and we're likely to be even more so as we're approaching the festive season. So I'd also say make sure it's voluntary rather than mandatory to get some engagement with the team members to encourage people to participate. And if it doesn't land first time round, people don't respond, look at what tweaks you can make. Perhaps you can provide the opportunity to reply anonymously to the check-in, or you can use it as a tool in your one-to-one. So the one that we have developed is a very simple, I think it's 1 to 10 questions. You can score some of them are open responses. It can be, as I said, taken, used in a one-to-one, or you can use it as a kind of anonymous survey. So it's really, really flexible. And I think, as a customer, when there's a good vibe in a hospitality or food service business, and that's down to a good team dynamic, and a wellbeing check-in can help you identify ways to nurture and maintain that dynamic, and that's also part of your positive and open culture. And again, just think about how you might communicate that wellbeing check-in. So, would you use it in your one-to-ones? Would you put it on a company Facebook page? Would you email it? And as I said, I'd recommend if people are not filling it in, then you reassure them that all the information is confidential as well. That can be one of the barriers to people engaging with a wellbeing survey or a check-in. And I think, again, just be clear at the end of it. What are you actually going to do in terms of acting on the results of a check-in or a survey? So, be clear about what you can do now. Could that be, identifying 2 to 3 things that you can change operationally in the short term? So a tweak to a shift pattern, or as Zoe was talking about, that really good opportunity to get the team together pre or post service to share a meal and chat informally, but build that culture of openness. And then be clear about kind of what decisions may need that longer term planning, additional resource or budget, senior level buy-in, for example, your mental health awareness training, or introducing an EAP as well. And I think, again, it just comes back to kind of autonomy for the team as well. Consider what autonomy you could give your team members to make changes in their own workplace. And that really helps improve team wellbeing and morale. So it really comes back to what we can achieve by working and learning together as a team for those positive and lasting results.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've made quite a few notes here, and I think, the pandemic, you're right, it's been a leveler. Listening to everybody here this afternoon, wellbeing check-ins is something that everyone's talked about. We probably didn't talk about that before. We had COVID, Fair Kitchens has come out of this. So actually, if part of one-to-ones consisted of wellbeing as a positive and norm going forward, then that would be a great thing that Fair Kitchen starts the journey on. So, with some great things discussed here. Okay, right, thanks for that, Camilla. It's been fascinating. So I am just going to sort of ask a final question to Alex, Zoe and Mark. So I'll start with you, Alex. So after everything that people have been talking about, you've said, what does a good leader look like for you? And what would you say is sort of the top key 3 things for you, Alex?
Well, look, I think, Camilla's managed to get all the way almost to the end, and then Camilla mentioned it, but we have got a staffing crisis. So I think that it's all about a good leader should create a great environment, one where people want to work and want to stay, because we can't afford to have people leaving down to the kitchen environment. So I think creating that great environment, someone that's looking to develop themselves as well as the team. So things that they can do, you've heard Mark taking on mental first aid training. There's things like the Fair Kitchens leadership training that you can do as well. That's a free resource available to you. And it's really, developing the team. That's what I think makes a great leader.
And Mark?
Yeah, so the 3 things for me is being inspirational, and that can be just as simple as someone's dress sense. Like if a senior manager comes down, they look smart, they're inspirational to the rest of the staff to turn up to work well presented. Loyalty for me is a big thing, and that takes time to build. But one of the things I do every morning, I go around and make sure that I say good morning to everyone in the team, whether it's a kitchen porter, whether it's a lead chef. And that's my time where I can gauge how people are. If they're different, as Camilla spoke about, if they're different from yesterday, they was loud yesterday, today they're a bit down, I will go back and sensor check on them guys an hour later, and just, if I need to touch base, I can. So for me, loyalty is a big thing. And final, open and honesty to the staff. Sometimes you have to talk about the good stories and tell them they've done a great job. But also for me, I think you have to share some of the not so good stories. But for me, that's sharing a bit of the stress as well from me, letting the guys know that actually not all the time you do a great job, and this is what we can do to improve. So being open and honest as well.
Brilliant, thanks. And Zoe?
I think it goes back to one of my first answers to the question, is lead by example. I think that's really important across many different levels within the kitchen. Pleases and thank yous, they don't cost anything. And I think to say please, and rather than having that shouting environment that we've all come from, and thank yous at the end of shift and end of service to go a long way. And treat people how you'd like to be treated. Just be kind and considerate to others.
Fantastic. That's fantastic, and that would all make such a difference to everybody's environments if everybody adapts that. So thanks very much, everybody.
Hi everyone. So we really hope you enjoyed that session just now. Hopefully you thought it was really useful to you. We're just now going to share some additional resources to help and support you. So you will have heard mention as we went through the session about some of the key things that we've got available, starting with an introduction to Fair Kitchens. So we've got an absolutely fantastic 4-pager telling you all about Fair Kitchens, giving you more information about leadership training that's available to you, what it covers, essentially the key takeouts. We've also got a great wellbeing check-in template that you would have heard Camilla mention. So this really will help you do regular wellbeing check-ins and a great way to identify ways to support your team, and will really help to get you started. We've also got a pain points solution sheet. So it really identifies some of those common pain points that can crop up, particularly during the busy festive season. And there's some fabulous suggestions for how to overcome those. Everything from colleagues just calling in last minute sick to onboarding new team members. So sort of expanding on some of the points in today's session. And finally, and certainly not least, we've included a link here for you to that free online training that's available to you, Leading a Fair Kitchen, which will really help to create the kind of culture that people outside will want to be part of. And it contains some brilliant insights from chefs and industries across, from chefs and experts across the globe on how to effectively lead a team. So you can download the resources here and now, should you wish to, if you've got your phone at the ready. But if you haven't, don't worry, we'll be making the whole of this session available afterwards for you to download from YouTube. So you can access the resources that way. And of course, you can always go onto the Fair Kitchens website and take a look directly. And we would encourage you to do that, as well as Hospitality Action. Just wanted to also give you a bit of an overview of the rest of the webinars that are taking place as part of the Winter Virtual Food Festival. This Thursday, we've got a fantastic introduction to calorie labelling on menus, so that new legislation that's due to come in for businesses affected. That session's at 11 o'clock on Thursday for anybody wanting a really great overview of what that legislation could mean for you, your business. Then on the 1st of December, we've got Veganuary joining us for an absolutely brilliant session, also hosted by Unilever, and we've got 2 of our customers joining to share some great tips, ideas and thoughts on January, the market, consumer attitudes, and how to make that a lasting opportunity for next year and beyond. And then on the 15th of December, we are hosting a session around solutions for leased and tenanted pubs, and the benefits of working with the national chains and some of those brilliant resources. And finally, and not least, on the 4th of January, we've got a follow-up session on the new calorie labelling on menus legislation coming in. So this will all be about practical solutions to help you get ready for that. And of course, if you missed our summer event webinars, you can always go onto YouTube and watch all of those as well. There's some fantastic sessions there available to you. But without further ado, we'll go into some questions. And we've had some come through actually during the session. So if I can ask the first one, Zoe, and I think this one's probably aimed in your direction, if that's okay. But what can education do to help train future managers and head chefs? And this is a brilliant question come through from Lewis Walker from UCB, the College of Food.
Morning, Fran, and I think that's a fantastic question, and it really needs to start at grassroots levels. So we need to engage with our college lecturers to make a change into the dynamics of the college catering kitchens, and to really embed the better way of behaving within our kitchen environments. So many catering students join colleges and very much with the thought process of what they see of certain celebrity chefs and their behaviours on TV. And obviously working in partnership with Fair Kitchens, that's where we're wanting to break down those old-fashioned ways of working. So absolutely grassroots, let's engage with college catering lecturers, and Breaks themselves have worked with college students within the catering divisions for many years. And that's something that I'm certainly going to be doing moving forward in the coming weeks, is to re-engage with our local college and to see as to how we can partner with them and their kitchens.
Thanks, Zoe. And Lewis has asked as well, and it probably is one for us to take offline, but would we be willing to visit University College in Birmingham to run a guest lecture? They'd be really interested if we were able to offer anything like that moving forwards, or you never know, perhaps another webinar.
Absolutely. I'm sure, like you say, we can take that and see what we can do.
Thanks so much for that, Lewis. We've had a question come through. We tend to find our staff's energy levels and morale dipping as things get busier over Christmas and the New Year week. Do we have any tips that can keep staff upbeat and engaged during what can obviously be that kind of peak, really tiring time?
Mark came up with a great idea, didn't he, with his tickets and trying to engage the families and engage people. I think it's really important to think about, it's not just those people, it's the impact of having to work all those hours and what else can we do to help support them. Yeah. So if it is something simple as, bringing in a family member just to have a drink with them at the end of service, or doing things like that, some really, really simple things. But I think it's all about energy levels, great communication, and making sure that we're all committed and understand when you've got time off, and making sure that time off is secured. In that training videos that we launched, Chris Galvin actually speaks about protected time off and making sure that that's mapped out in advance, so that people know that there is that light at the end of the tunnel, so they're working towards something. But just making sure it's protected and that they know that they've got that space is really, really important to morale.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. That's great. Probably one for Lisa, but what things are covered in the leadership training modules? Do we have any sort of more information around the sorts of modules that are in there?
Yes, thank you, Fran. So yeah, I can definitely talk a little bit more about the leadership training, which has been mentioned a couple of times on the webinar. So it's an online training series, so it's small little kind of bite-sized videos that people can watch, so you don't have to do it all at the same time. But we have essentially 6 modules. So the first one is around kind of self-management and self-awareness. So that's all about, how Alex was saying, earlier on, how someone had to say to him, do you actually know how you're coming across? For him to realise and take a step back. So it's all around how can you do that, every day and make sure you do know the impact you're having on your team. There's a module around communication, so making sure that you kind of set the vision clearly to your team and they know what everyone's working towards. We have recruitment and onboarding, which is all around how do you recruit the best talent and diverse talent, but also how it's really important once you've recruited someone to actually keep them. So how do you make those first 3 weeks, 3 months, really, really impactful, so someone feels like they're part of the team and you don't lose them. We have building diverse talent in teams, which is all around, developing your team, mentoring your team, getting the most out of them. Then we have a module on wellbeing, which is more in depth of the things that Camilla has talked about. So we work really closely with Hospitality Action on that one, as well as the Charity Mind. And then the final one is crisis management. So that's around, if your team's hit with a crisis, which can easily happen, how do you manage that and how do you keep care of them and how do you get them to move on? And at the end of each module, there's a real clear takeaway action. So Alex mentioned the 360 turbo, the wellbeing check. There's something called an hour for us, a SWOT analysis. It's all things that you can practically then take into your kitchen and into your business. So it's not just something that you take and then kind of forget about it. And at the end, you get a certificate of completion with the Culinary Institute of America. So I hope that's kind of answered your question, but do check it out. And then also in that 4-pager, there's a lot more detail there. But it is brilliant, and it really does bring together voices of chefs as well as experts to create this training that anyone can take. Even I know there was a question around, education. You could give this training to your students as well. Anyone can sign up and take it for free.
Thanks, Lisa. That's absolutely brilliant. And I guess on that, leading on from that, we've had a question in saying it's hard to get our staff to come in short notice when we need to cover absence. Any tips? I guess that's kind of quite a common pinch point, crisis point that can cause a challenge last minute. I don't know if anyone's got any tips on that.
Well, from the leadership training, a couple of chefs talked about this point and the importance of kind of cross-training. And cross-training can also help keep that spark alive as well as you learn new things. So if, you lead up to Christmas, if there is a chance that you have, kind of any time to be able to cross-train your staff, even we've heard stories of people that are usually on front of house learning some things to do back of house to help out, that, if you do have that last minute, someone suddenly disappears or someone doesn't come in, that you've got someone in the background that can step in and, essentially all work together. So there are some of the things that I've heard. I don't know if anyone else has got anything extra from their experiences.
Yeah, at least I was working at Twickenham on Saturday, and obviously shortage of chefs. There was a lot going on in London on Saturday, and we had some guys come across from Keith Prowse. One was the receptionist, Debbie, and one was Nick, head of sales. Although he's a salesman, he's passionate about food, and he absolutely loved working in the kitchen with us for the day. So yeah, pulling on resources like that, people that are willing and able to work. So you can teach people to cook, but you can't teach people the right attitude to be in the kitchen. So yeah, no, we used them on Saturday and they worked really well, to be fair.
And finally, I'm keen for my team to feel that they can give their feedback and make suggestions, but I don't always think that they feel confident and comfortable to do that. Do we have any ideas that might encourage people to feel that they can give their suggestions more freely?
We have so at Tottenham front we have a suggestion box. So
fabulous idea.
We've got like a room upstairs. Some people just want to write their frustrations down on a bit of paper and want to post it into the box. Some people just want to write them down and then screw it up and throw it in the bin, and then they feel better afterwards. But no, we have a suggestion box for people to put their ideas into.
That's brilliant, Mark. Thank you. Okay, well, that's the end of the questions and the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. We do hope that you got a lot out of it, and do feel free to come back, like I say, when we've uploaded the video to YouTube, and download those resources that we've made available for you if you've not had a chance to do so already, or go on to the Hospitality Action and Fair Kitchens websites as well and have a look, because there are some absolutely brilliant videos, stories on there, and some great resources as well. So thank you so much to all our speakers today for taking your time out to share your experiences and expertise as well. And thank you everyone that's viewed and stayed on to listen to the Q&A at the end. And like I say, we do hope you've got a lot out of it. So have a great rest of the day, everybody, and thank you very much.